Hey.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to This Is It on YouTube. My name is Devin, and we have a very special episode for you this week. That's right, we're getting ready to sit down with none other than Tiana Rae.
That's right, for those of you who do not know, Tiana Rae is the founder of Madethnic Art. We're going to be talking to her about Madethnic Art. We're also going to be talking to her about what it was like for her working in the fine art industry and a whole bunch of other stuff in between that. So it's going to be a really great episode. Stick around.
We also have a new music feature from Doug D, so get ready, grab your mom, grab the popcorn. You already know the drill, because guess what? This is episode 12 with none other than Tiana Rae. Welcome everybody to This Is It podcast. My name is Devin. I'm here with Brad, and today we have somebody very special in the studio. That's right, we are sitting down with Tiana Rae. How you doing today?
I'm good, guys. How are you?
Good. Thank you for coming through, sitting down and talking with us. So we're going to be talking about a little bit today, or not a little bit, we're going to be talking about pretty much, your area of expertise, which is art and art business specifically. But before we begin, I want to get a little background on you, Tiana, just to let people know, who you are, where you're from, what you get into and stuff like that. So if you could just give us a little bit of background info about yourself.
Yeah, so as for the art training, I have an art history degree from UMass. I also studied arts management, so that's how I have that knowledge of there. I've worked in a couple museums. I've worked in one in Chicago. I've worked at the UMass Museum, done a couple of things like that, thrown a couple of pop-up shops, some art exhibitions, things like that. I like connecting with artists and networking that way.
Nice. So where are you from?
I'm from Leominster, Mass.
Okay. How long, when did you move out here?
I moved out here when I went to school.
Okay.
So I've been in this area since 2013,
Okay.
2014, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And how did growing up out there, impact you and, affect this, creative development within you?
Yeah, well, that area in particular isn't too big on artsy things, but I come from a very artistic family. So my dad's a sculptor. He sculpts in clay, cast bronze, and he's also a marble carver. My uncle's a painter. My aunts do ink prints, things like that. So I came from a very talented family, and that got me into pursuing this further.
Nice.
Yeah.
So with your family members being so heavily involved in art, was it just a natural progression for you to just go into art history and art management as your major when you went to school?
Yeah, I started off in studio art, but when my professors were trying to convince me to go to the Art Institute of Chicago, I saw the price of it. I was like, I'm not paying $80,000, to learn how to draw. So
That's wild.
Yeah, and then one of the in the curriculum, art history is one of them that you have to take. And so once I took that, I was like, I would rather put my energy into learning about art and the artists and the methods behind it than actually sitting there and drawing all day.
Yeah. For people who are listening that might not know, what's studio art?
Studio art is anything you're creating the art itself. So painting, pastels, drawing, anything like that you're actually they'll give you studio space, and you're literally there with you build a portfolio throughout your courses.
Gotcha. Some real Bob Ross type things.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
Live models and things like that. Yeah.
No, that's definitely a dope way of going about it. Can you talk to us a little bit about your company, Madethnic Art? Yeah, the stuff that you do is pretty much what you just explained right there.
Yeah. So with that, I decided that through the UMass curriculum, I saw what I learned, and then there's a huge emphasis on what I didn't learn. So I didn't learn of many people of color, anyone with any type of ethnic background, or anyone aside from a white European male, So I didn't think that gave me a strong enough understanding of the art world, especially contemporary art and American art. So I decided to create a platform where I would focus solely on urban artists and local artists and try to build that way and give people an open space where they can come and display their art and network that way.
So how did that idea come about? Like you were saying, there wasn't a lot of ethnic people that you seen when learning about art and stuff like that. What made you decide to start this instead? Because there's the easy way could have been I'm not learning enough, so maybe I can go to Chicago where that ethnic scene's a lot larger. Why bring it back over here?
I really just tried to take advantage of my surroundings because I still had time in this area. I was able to extend my year at UMass and just focus on my internships at the museum, where I actually worked with artists like Fred Wilson and Kara Walker, Caitlin Cherry, and some other big names. And then I was a docent, so I led the tours to like the African art exhibition. And just through that, like seeing how people respond to Black artists and different types of art within that museum sphere, like just really made me feel like I needed to do something like right now. So yeah, I started throwing those pop-up shows like in my house in Hadley. So I just really took advantage of the space I was in.
How would they respond like when you were leading these tours?
Yeah, so the demographic of that museum in particular is like older white people, you know?
Yeah.
Like,
Especially in that area.
Right,
Yeah.
in like an upper class almost. So walking through, like one woman looking at these religious African objects said, "Oh, I can't, these are so beautiful, I can't believe they just gave these away." And I was like, "Ma'am."
They were stolen.
Right, like I don't think much was just given away in Africa at this time.
Exactly.
So it was like a lot of stuff like that, and it was just like, yeah, or with like Kara Walker. Like Kara Walker is older than I am. I think I'm the same age as her daughter, actually. But someone walked in and just like, we weren't even open yet. Like we were still getting ready for the opening night. This woman just like whipped the doors open, walked in, and she was like, "Oh, you must be the artist." And I was like, "No, actually I'm not. I'm just working here. I'm the intern." And so it was just like people just kind of assume like if you're of color in a museum, you're the artist, or like art was just given from these countries and things like that. And so it was just like, and the fact that like, especially for African art, like the fact that it's called art is already an issue, because these are they're objects that are created for a purpose. So they have a function. You know what I mean? Like, and these ones in particular, they were created when they're called the Abejis. So in this one area, there was just a really high number of twins, and so if one twin passed, it also had like the highest infant death rate. But when one twin passed, they would create these dolls so that its spirit would attach itself to that doll rather than try to drag the living twin into the other side. So that's the purpose of them. And then the mother would carry it around and like feed it. So like some of their mouths were worn and things like that. And they were like, they're not just little statues that you just put on your shelf. You know what I mean? Like these were like, they were treated like the children that they had just lost. So for people to be like, "Oh my God, these are so beautiful, like I love them, like why did they just give these away?" I was like, I don't know how they took these from these families to begin with. But the fact that they were on display in a museum is also problematic. And the collector, every piece was from the same collector. This older white dude from Northampton, and I had some of my own, you know, problems with him. Just with, like, he had a complex, like a savior complex, and like, I can get all this art for cheaper, and like, oh look, finally art I can buy on the teacher's salary, and like, oh, I found it on the floor, it's cracked, I'm gonna get it even less. And like, he was just like really proud to like kind of just put things on display for everyone else, you know. I don't know, it was weird. So that just was like super unsettling for me, like that whole experience. So that's why I switched my focus to just like throwing like just a comfortable space where like people that can relate to me and like that experience would have a good time. Really the main goal is just to create a platform. So I invite artists that can really use that space for something, so like they can help themselves develop. But I'll start by like hitting up artists that I know for one are in the area. And then two, if I like their art or not, you know, that's a big thing as well. And then I really just try to go with like the vibe. So just like, you know, like just pick a vibe for it. And then people who are interested will come up. Like there's a lot of people there, like the one who did the Kanye piece, I didn't know any of them. There was a lot of people, and like before you got introduced to it, I met a lot of people through Instagram, especially through my first one. So, you know, like sometimes I don't know the artists that are going to show up before they do, but I just like to leave it open so people can just take advantage of that space and use it for what they need. Yeah, so I have a plan to throw 12 shows this month. No. I have
This
12,
month? Whoa.
12 shows this year, so I'm going to do one a month. I have to do 2 in 1 month because I missed January. But that's the plan. So I'm trying. I have 3 in the works already. So I have the venues. I have a general idea of who I'm going to invite to exhibit there. And then from then on, I'm just going to try to build it and see how it further develops itself. I have one planned for Hartford, Connecticut, and then I have one planned for Boston.
Nice.
And then I'm going to do one back home in Leominster. And so I'm actually going to be working with our artist again, VJ,
nice.
Panama Jack, back home. with a couple other people that were at the first show that you were there. And yeah, so I want to bring that back home. So because I know that doesn't exist back there,
True,
and I know that now that there's like a big like kind of artist following over there. So yeah, try to like just bring my talents back home for a little bit, and then just expand to wherever else I can, wherever the opportunity is. I try to get like a general location down first, and then if I know people that are in that area, or like I'll ask around. That first venue that I went to, that actually was like mentioned to me through Instagram. There was a guy who came through to vend at my house at the other pop-ups. We've gone to a couple things for him as well, but he mentioned it. He was like, oh hey, like I know this guy, he has a space. And so
that's the place in West Springfield?
Yeah. Okay. So I literally just DM'd him. I'm like, hey, this is what I do, I'm gonna throw an art show, like these are the components of my thing, does that work with you? And then he agreed, and he was like, yeah, actually, like I want to get more involved with art, and I would love to meet you. And so we set up a meeting, and like that I had a show. So
damn, that's
that worked
awesome.
really perfectly. Yeah.
So no lawyers involved, no business managers, just like, yo, you got a space, I got a product.
Right, yeah, and he was like, this is the first one, let's see how it goes, and so we split it 50-50 at the end, and that's how that worked out. Yeah, it was pretty cool.
Damn.
Nice.
It's nice when business works like that. Yeah. So actually, another question that I have for you too that kind of goes off of that. When you're, I don't know, it's in the artwork for artists specifically, and even people that host these sort of venues, how should artists go about pricing when they're selling their art?
I definitely like to have people take into consideration their materials. So don't underprice yourself also. Like whatever you want to value your art at, that's completely up to you. But I would take into account the amount of time it took you to do it, the cost of the materials you used. So if you bought like an $80 canvas, don't price something at like $60 because you don't think someone's gonna buy it. Kind of be fair to yourself, and also like if you start pricing too low, once you price accordingly, like to what it actually like costs for you to produce something like this, like you don't want that jump to be like too high and then people to be off put by it. So if you like start, and like for the most part the art world is like pretty justified. Like people will pay a little bit more for art. So I would just say don't be scared to price it what you think it's valued at. If you're gonna come to like a small pop-up shop, you've never displayed your art before, like should you price your first piece at like $400? I don't know. I mean, maybe not, but
Probably
like
not,
yeah, but like depending like what it is, like the type of things that are used, but like prints from all the shows that I've been to, the things that sell the most are smaller prints. So anything for like an 8.5 by 11 or anything like a 12 by 16. So for anywhere from like $10 to $40 would be a good price range for like those types of sizes if you're gonna sell things like that. But yeah, I would say like just be fair, but also be fair to yourself. Like don't worry about other people's pockets. That's a big thing I've learned. Because if people can afford to buy the art, they will. You know what I mean? Like if you're worried, oh my god, I don't know if people have money, like I'm just gonna price it at $5, but it was like $8 for you to print it. You know what I mean? Like don't dig a hole for yourself.
True. It just makes it a lot harder. Even like remember you were telling me like frames, like how sometimes the frames are worth more than the pieces themselves. And I was like, that's something that kind of blew my mind because even still, like an artist myself, I'm still trying to get a little bit more disciplined in that aspect. Like you were just describing, make sure you're pricing it so it's fair to yourself and not just so like, all right, I spent $40 to print this, it's 14 by 17, maybe if I price it like a little bit above that, maybe it's like a more attractive price, but you're 100% correct about that because at the end of the day, you're running a business.
Right, and like you want to keep doing it, like you want to be able to like have the funds to do this again. So any way that like, kind of makes that a positive experience for you. But in way of frames, always price things higher if it has a frame on it. But like especially like in the museum world, like working with like the collections and the registrar, so like checking in the art that comes in. If any art that's attached with the frame comes into like a museum, they're not allowed to change the frame. They like actually have to like contact the members of that family before they can be like, hey, I'm gonna like switch the frame up. But generally as like a base rule of thumb, you don't change the frame, especially if it comes in one. Because a lot of the times like things are custom built for it, like especially in like bigger museums, like the frames are always custom built for the pieces, and like the museum will acquire it with that frame on there. So that's also pretty cool, like especially with the artist having like a hand in selecting that frame, like like they've already decided that there's an attachment from that frame to that piece.
So really the frame is a part of the piece. It's not just like a housing for it or anything
Yeah,
like
so
that. It's not an
yeah.
insignificant part of it.
Right.
Imagine if they changed the frame for the picture that like paper shredded itself.
Oh yeah, actually, I wanted to get your opinion on that. So one thing me and Devin and I were talking about beforehand was how subjective art can be. So like, even just real quick, like the way you were describing art before, like how people view, African art specifically, like the mourning tool, like that statue was a mourning tool for women back in the day, and now it's just being displayed as like, oh, look at this statue,
Right. Yeah.
and that's not art to you. And so what would you consider art? What is art for you?
Art for me is anything that's created not as a purpose, but like an artist's way to kind of like express something. You know what I mean? So I don't think art is created to like solve a problem, but it's created to like express a problem or something like that. Yeah. So, and then also I was taught that like art is art because someone said it was. Like you could have like a little doodle and then it looks like a 3-year-old did it.
Yeah.
Versus like a very like attractive painting. But if someone says that doodle is worth 20 grand, like that's everyone's idea of it, and then it'll sell for 20 grand. It's really just however someone decides to interpret it.
That's exactly what I was thinking.
Yeah, I never really understood how like you could just have like paint splatter on a canvas and be like, yeah, this is like 6 G's right here. I was like, wait, what?
It's like
I can do that.
That's like the first thought that people like, or I guess maybe the second thought that comes to people's mind after they see the price. But it's like I remember seeing a Jackson Pollock and not thinking that, oh wait, I can do that. I was thinking like that's nuts. Just because when you look at it and you see like the brush strokes and how like violent they are. I forgot what the name of the piece was, but it was a Pollock piece definitely.
Yeah, his live painting.
Yeah, his live painting is just like, it's nuts. Another artist, I'm blanking on his name, but he's a Korean illustrator, but he does a lot of live draws and stuff like that. His pieces go for like 4 figures too, but he like sells books of all his drawings and stuff like that too. But like going back to the Banksy piece, like it was sold for 1.4 mil, and then once it got shredded, and I guess an appraiser valued it double that. So it was like double after the fact, even though the piece that you would suspect to be like the whole reason behind it being a $1.4 million piece is shredded. So it's just like, all right, so is that social commentary at that point, or is it still art? It's like, well, art can be social commentary, I guess.
I guess if it's shredded, it turns into like, like a 3-dimensional thing. Yeah. Like there's a bunch of ways that you could like kind of dissect that, but yeah, it's really like the action that takes to it. And then there's like also this art piece that's like a jarred can, and no one actually knows for sure what's in this can.
Yeah.
But once you crack the can open, the art piece is destroyed. So it's like, I don't know, but it's also like a ton of money. So I was like, someone's just gonna spend like a fortune on this can and like never be able to open it. And it's just like the idea that like, oh, there's this in it.
What's the importance of having a viable art scene here?
I think just creating a space where people feel comfortable to like express their art and like to put their art on display for others that are, like their peers. Yeah. Whereas like maybe a formal gallery space is like very intimidating and they don't know like the market that's going to be in there, like the audience there. I think that's really important, just to give people like the platform where they can, get their foot in the door like in a comfortable space. Like my cousin, for instance, like he's been writing poetry for a while. He's never let anyone hear it. He's never felt comfortable enough to, like perform it. But one of the first pop-ups I did, I told him he needed to be there and like kind of like lit a fire under him. And so, and I had the mic set up and everything. When he got there, he actually performed it, and it was the first time he had ever performed anything. First time anyone's heard his poetry, and it was really good. And it like got him, like really motivated to like keep producing it. And so just because it was like that kind of, comforting, safe space that like it can help people grow individually. But I've worked as an art teacher for a summer program, and that I literally had to create the art-based curriculum for the entire summer. Really? And then adjust it based off of like the ages of the guys. So like, like if there's a 5-year-old versus like a 14-year-old, they're not going to want to do the same thing. Like there's different levels that you have to like make it more interesting for them.
So how was that when you had to create the entire curriculum and develop like a academic setting for art?
Yeah, it was interesting because then you have to like think long term, and then it really makes you break it down from like the overall idea to like the exact materials you're going to use and like how much time it's going to take them to understand the concept and to like carry
true.
it out.
Yeah.
So it was pretty interesting. It worked out for the most part. Besides like the rebellious kids, I was like, oh, okay, I don't want this, and I was like, alright guys,
you're missing out, man.
Right, yeah. And I was like, just sit here. You're in here for this long. Like just you'll get through it. Yeah, but it was cool. And then I've actually taken a course like art education where we build curriculums, and having that experience really helped because I had already done it. I did it without any experience doing it before, and then to like be guided by like a professor.
It's just so much easier.
And I was like, oh wow, yeah. But it was cool because then
that's
it's
awesome.
like you have like an overall idea, and I was working with like famous pieces, and then it was like, okay, like let's look at this and then like recreate that in our own way and like kind of like use those methods.
That's cool.
Yeah, super.
That's real cool.
Yeah.
Huh.
This week's new music feature is from Doug D. It is called In the Streets.
I'm in the street, they don't say it down. Everyone's feeling down. Proud. It's Doug D. Ain't really much I can tell you. Got way, but I don't sell it. Who asking? Who telling? Got intentions of a feeling with no record. Her pow when I'm in the street. Man down, I'll bow down to your king. That ain't victory, bitch. I went for real. All these niggas fake depressed, so now they poppin' pills. I done had a Zan, but I put them down. She claim you as a man, but we be creepin' around. Gotta watch my back like every day, I know that reap around. Can't take my names for granted, I love who I keep around. Gotta roll that dope up back to back, I keep that super loud. Bitch gave me hair last night, she got that super mouth. Stupid shit, she ride me on some Uber shit. I say turn on super league, you get no bird, you super trick. Stupid kids, shooting shit, jump like rudiments. Neo in the Matrix, that's the way that I'm juking shit. Gotta stay light on my feet, these bitches out here tryna set me up. I'll be down as fuck if a nigga ever catches up. Gotta stack it up to the roof, and I can never be committed. I keep fucking on my group instead. Ain't really much I can tell you, got way but I don't sell it. Who asking, who telling, got intentions of a feeling with no record. Her pow when I'm in the street. Her pow when I'm in the street. Ain't really much I can tell you, got way but I don't sell it. Who asking, who telling, got intentions of a feeling with no record. Her pow when I'm in the street. Her pow when I'm in the street.
Alright everybody, that was our episode for this week. Thank you again to Tiana for pulling up and doing that episode with us. Big thank you to her. Also, big thank you to Mad Ethnic Art. The things that you are doing with that, phenomenal work, giving a space to artists of color. Can't be said enough, especially within the fine arts industry. Not a lot of spaces for people like us. If you want to show support to Mad Ethnic Art, make sure you go check out the page on Instagram at Mad Ethnic Art or Made Ethnic Art, depending on how you pronounce it. If you want to keep up to what Tiana's doing in her day-to-day life, make sure you check out our Instagram page at Trizzae, Trizzae. That'll be in the link below. Also, shout out to our sponsor, J Sells Vintage. For all your vintage wear needs, he's got whatever you need at an affordable rate. Z starters, Jordans, Nike, old Morehouse gear, he's got it. So make sure you go over to Instagram.com and check out J Sells Vintage.
And thank you to our new music feature, Doug D. You can follow him on Instagram at OneDougD. Go show support. Let him know that the guys from This Is It sent you. Once again, thank you for letting us use that, brother. We really do appreciate that. Next week, make sure you tune in because we have an interview with Ish Aknor. He is a rapper out of Western Massachusetts. He's been featured on Hot 937, and we talk about the relationship between him and Post Malone's DJ. So make sure you tune in for that one. It's going to be a very good episode.
So yeah, everyone, thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. I'm Brad.